Hi, I'm Steve. I currently don't have any projects going on in the shop right now. I've got some in the planning stages. I'm putting tools away from a demo I did yesterday at Mark's Machinery in Fort Smith, and I thought this might be a perfect opportunity to make a few videos. And the demo I did was on the router table, and one of the aspects of that was making a mortise and tenon joint on a router table. And I know this is a lousy color match, but I do have some leftover demo materials, and I'm going to use this and some other materials, and I'll show you how I make this mortise and tenon joint on the router table. First thing I want to do is mark the center of the apron. And what I'm going to do is set my fence such that the center of my bit is here. Now, you can usually really do a good job of seeing lining that mark up with the center of your bit, just based on the milling marks. See if I can zoom in here. Okay, so over here I've got the center of my bit lined up with the center of the mark. Now, if I left it that way and I milled the mortise in my leg, this face would be flush with that edge, but I want a recess. I want it recessed approximately 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to use a spacer, and this is 1/8 inch Baltic birch ply, and I'm just going to leave my fence a little loose here, set my back up and lock my fence in place. Okay, so I've got my masking tape, and to be quite honest with you, the cheaper the better on this, because the cheaper tape doesn't stick very long. And I'm just going to mark this. Just going to lay it on the outside. Now, you could mark the fence, but what I'm going to be doing is dropping the leg down from the top, and you won't be able to see the marks on the fence. Okay, so my tape's down on the table. Now, to do this, I've raised enough of the bit to where I've got, because this is a spiral bit, there's a cutting edge exposed all around. And the best way to mark that, what I want to do is mark the leading and trailing edge. So I'm just going to take my workpiece, or my apron, which I know is square. I'm going to put it up against the spiral bit, and that's the leading edge. I'll mark that square here, and that's the trailing edge of my bit. Take your leg and your apron, and I'm not going to measure this, I'm just going to mark it directly off my workpiece. So I'm going to use white pencil here, just lightly mark that where that apron is. I'm going to go 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to make a mark from the top, for the bottom and the top. And these are going to be the limits of where my mortise is. You can take a regular square, or what I like to use is a saddle square. And I'm going to use this saddle square to put the limits of the mortise, mark that all the way around on the leg. And this enables you to just, with one positioning, mark both two sides at once. Okay. So I've put the marks all the way around the leg. And what I'll use when I drop this down to mill the mortises, I know my starting edge will be on the trailing edge of my bit, and then I'm going to move it up to where it gets to the next mark, on the masking tape and those line up, I can pull it back and then I'm going to pull it off the bit. So now that my fence is set for where my mortise will be located back here, and I've got the extents of my mortise based on the leading and trailing edges of the bit, I'm about ready to start cutting. But to avoid confusion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose, all right, where do I want my mortises? If you don't mark this out, for me, I'm always messing it up some way. So, you know, I have miscut mortises before. I've done it with a domino. So I'm going to take a crayon or piece of chalk or whatever, and I'm going to mark the two faces or the two locations approximately where the mortise will be. Okay, so I've got the dado and planing bits set up in the machine, the fence reset, it clears, and I've got the depth of the cut from the fence, approximately 1 inch. You don't want it more than an inch because I don't want it to bottom out before the cheeks close on the leg. So from what we have here, we've got our board. And from before, I have 0.846 inches is the thickness of the board. I cut a 5/16 inch mortise, so that should be pretty close to about 0.31, 317, 315. So that's the width of my mortise. So what I want to do is take out enough of this on both sides to get that tenon to be 0.315 inches. So how do I do that? I take my 0.846 minus 0.315, and I apologize for the clarity of this. And to avoid math errors, I like to use my calculator here. .0.531 inches. So that's the total amount of material I have to take off the full thickness, but since I'm going to divide it by 2 on each side, I want to divide that by 2, and I am 0.265 inches. Okay, I wanted 0.265 inches. Right now I'm 0.194. So now I'm just going to raise the bit to where I get 0.265. And I'm 0.265 inches above the zero on the table. This was a jig I constructed from my shaper, which is perfect for this application. It's a piece of scrap plywood, some pieces of 2x4, and this jig, I've got some pressure sensitive adhesive paper on the front of it. This jig is what I used on the shaper to notch the back of drawers for the Bloom or Headage Quadro or Bloom tandem slides. Oh yeah, that was just perfect. So now all I know is that my tenon's the right thickness. I mean, I don't have any wiggle room side to side. So now what I need to do is trim the top and bottom. So now we'll go back to our setup here. If I did not have sandpaper on this, I would be using some spring clamps to clamp this apron to it, and this is an operation that's similar to notching the back of drawers for the tandem slides. Now we're to the point where we have the almost the proverbial square peg in a round hole, but I should be pretty blooming close here. So I've got two choices here. I can either square the tenons in the leg, or square the mortises in the leg, or round over the tenon on the apron. It's a lot easier to round over the tenon on the apron, so I'm going to show you how I do that. The easiest way to do this is at the, I've got this put in the tail vise, chisel and sandpaper. The chisel is, I'm going to just go into each side here. Be careful when you're pointing this thing at you. And what I'm going to do is just knock off the sharp corner, so I've got less work to do with the sandpaper. And I'm going to angle this a little more toward me, get a better angle. Okay, so I've got this partially, or at least the sharp corners knocked over. This is 80 grit paper. This is a wood turner's paper. It's very flexible. Perfect for this job. It doesn't take much. I'm going to turn this thing around and it's just easier to pull it toward me than it is to push away from me. Have a little more control. And now I've turned my square peg into, maybe it's not a square, but whatever. Now I do have some fuzzing, like you'll normally get on a router. Let's see how the fit is. Okay, so that's how I make mortise and tenon joint. I mean, this is one of the better fits. It's not quite as tight as a domino joint, but hey, it works really well. Now, you will see the bottom of the tenon in this other mortise. What you can do is take a pencil, put in here and mark it off, and take this to either the miter saw or table saw and put a miter on that for the opposing tenon. So let's see how it looks on this, fits on this side too, and it fits equally as well. So I thank you for watching. If you've got any questions or comments, I appreciate them, and thank you for your subscriptions. Have a great day.